You already know this story, though you pretend you don't. You meet someone who treats you like a passing thought, distant, distracted, half present, and suddenly you're the one doing all the thinking. You check your phone too often. You rewrite dull messages into poetry they never deserved. You call this attraction. Your nervous system calls it survival. And if that sentence stings, keep listening, because this is not a video about them. It's about the pattern inside you that keeps answering a door that never fully opens. Let us begin with an uncomfortable truth. You are not addicted to a person. You are addicted to a schedule. Intermittent reward, the most powerful behavioral loop ever discovered, trains you better than any promise. The late-night reply, the sudden attention after days of silence, the momentary warmth followed by a winter of cool remarks. Your brain records these spikes of dopamine like fireworks in a dark field. It does not care who lights them. It only insists that you keep watching the sky. Psychologists have a name for this: variable ratio reinforcement. Slot machines run on it. Some relationships do, too. When affection is consistent, your body relaxes. When affection is unpredictable, your body vigilantly waits for the next hit. The irony? The colder the behavior, the more precise your attention becomes. You misread crumbs as signs of a feast. You mistake scarcity for depth. But scarcity is not depth. It is simply control. Plato warned that we mistake shadows for reality when we are chained to a wall of appearances. In the cave of this dynamic, the shadow is the cool persona, a sculpted absence paraded as power. You fixate on that silhouette, constructing an inner myth. There must be a hidden fire behind such indifference. There must be a treasure behind the locked door. But in Plato's terms, the treasure is the act of turning your head toward the light, toward truth, not an elite prize behind someone's silence. The lesson is not how to win the shadow, it is how to stop worshiping it. Here is a second truth. Coldness is a performance that costs you more than it costs them. Nietzsche said, "We love our desire, not what is desired." This is the trick. The aloof partner becomes a stage on which your desire can appear heroic, patient, romantic, tragic. You begin to love the feeling of chasing more than the person you chase. The feeling flatters your resilience. It promises meaning where there is only delay. Yet Nietzsche would also tell you to turn the will to chase into the will to form, to create a self strong enough to choose abundance, not just endure scarcity. Does this mean the cold person is always calculating? Not necessarily. Often distance is simply immature strategy, fear masked as sophistication. Machiavelli wrote about power clothed in restraint, how rulers learn to appear less available to increase perceived value. In love, that logic feels intoxicating, but it confuses power with worth. A strategy can raise your price and still bankrupt your soul. If someone's value rises as your self-respect falls, the math is clear. The profit isn't mutual. Let us go deeper. Why does distance activate you so forcefully? Some of you grew up learning that love must be earned. Through excellence, compliance, emotional labor, consistent warmth may feel unfamiliar, even suspicious, while inconsistency feels like home. Your nervous system recognizes the rhythm. You don't think you're repeating the past. Your body simply resumes the story. Bonhoeffer warned that the greatest danger is not malice, but unexamined patterns. Stupidity in his sense is moral sleepwalking, the failure to question the obvious. In relationships, unexamined patterns breed quiet tragedies. You accept what hurts because it feels normal. Normal is not the same as healthy. Familiar is not the same as safe. Consider a story. Two people meet. One offers sunlight, steadiness, directness, availability. The other offers fog, intrigue, delay, a minimalist affection that promises more once things settle. The fog fascinates. The sunlight seems too easy. But ease is not a flaw. It is an index of alignment. The fog keeps you busy. The sun keeps you honest. If you feel your attention bending toward the fog, ask, am I drawn to them or to the work required to keep them? Here is a twist you may resist. Sometimes you chase because you fear being chosen. To be chosen is to be seen. To be seen is to be accountable. To be accountable is to risk disappointing someone who actually expects you to show up. The cold partner spares you this terror. They never fully choose you, so you never face the test of being fully yourself. You can keep the fantasy of who you would be in a mature love without the cost of becoming that person. Unavailable partners are mirrors that never reflect your flaws. That is why they feel safe, dangerously safe. Now, a brief detour into critical thinking. Write down the last 3 times you felt a dramatic surge of longing. What preceded it? Was it attention or the withdrawal of attention? If your longing spikes after withdrawal, you are not witnessing destiny. You are witnessing a nervous system trained by variance. Next, list the most consistent behaviors in the person you are drawn to. Consistency reveals character, not their words, not their potential, not their apologies. Their calendar, their follow-through, their care under no spotlight. Consistency is the philosopher's stone of intimacy. It turns ordinary time into trust. Plato reminds us to seek the form behind the appearance. The form of real interest is steady curiosity, not theatrical scarcity. Nietzsche reminds us to create values. Choose what strengthens your spirit, not just what intensifies your feeling. Machiavelli reminds us to detect strategy where sincerity should live. Some coldness is a move, not a truth. Bonhoeffer reminds us to resist the social current of convenience. Don't let the culture of performance make you passive in your own heart. Let us return to the title. Why do some women become addicted to men who act like they're nothing? Because nothing becomes everything when your mind fills the gaps. You project, idealize, and negotiate against yourself. The less they give, the more you invest to justify staying. The sunk cost fallacy moves from economics into emotion. The more time you spend waiting, the more certain you become that waiting will be worth it. But time invested is not evidence of value delivered. It is only evidence of time spent. Another twist. Indifference can masquerade as high status. In modern dating markets, scarcity equals desirability. This is supply and demand logic misapplied to souls. The illusion says, if they are distant, they must have options. Perhaps. Or perhaps they have habits they never examined. Perhaps they are not choosing, but drifting. Tycoons of attention are often bankrupt in intimacy. Do not mistake a crowded inbox for a full heart. Now, what of responsibility? You are not powerless in this pattern, and the escape is not a game of reverse aloofness. You do not heal by mastering their strategy. You heal by exiting the theater entirely. Cultivate these practices. Rituals that anchor. Daily acts of self-respect that do not depend on anyone's reply. Movement, reading, creative work, service. A life with momentum makes you less available to scarcity theater. Boundaries that predict. If someone's pattern is intermittent, your response is consistent. Reduce availability proportionally, not as punishment, but as hygiene. Where consistency is absent, intimacy cannot grow. You can care without auditioning. Questions that clarify. What are you building? How do you treat people when no one is watching? What do you repair after you break it? The right questions turn charm into data. Standards that protect. Affection must be timely, not just intense. Interest must be demonstrated, not implied. Apologies must be accompanied by pattern change, not just sentiment. If you practice these, something subtle changes. You become untrickable by your own longing. The mirror of intermittent attention loses its magic. Coldness becomes just that, coldness, not a code to be cracked. Still, you ask, what about the romance, the chase, the spark? Here is the final uncomfortable truth. Security does not kill desire. Boredom kills desire. Emotional laziness kills desire. Two present adults who are curious about each other can generate more electricity than any game, precisely because the circuit is closed. Energy flows. Risk is real. Masks fall. That is where intimacy begins, in the courage to be seen while choosing and being chosen. Before we close, let us confront a quieter form of self-betrayal. You might believe that choosing someone kind and available means admitting you were wrong about the past. It can feel like a betrayal of your former self who waited, hoped, endured. But you do not betray your past by outgrowing it. You honor it by refusing to repeat it. Forgive the version of you who mistook effort for love. Forgive the version who called anxiety chemistry. Forgive the version who worshipped the shadow on the cave wall. Then walk out. A final image. Imagine your heart as a house with many rooms. In one room, a storm window rattles, the intermittent attention room. The wind hits, the frame shakes, and you rush to hold it closed. Hours pass. You call this devotion. Meanwhile, the rest of the house stands quiet. A library of shared values you could explore with someone consistent. A kitchen of daily tenderness, a garden of play. You do not live in your house. You perform maintenance on a broken window. Step back, see the house, choose the rooms that can hold a life. You were not made to beg for heat. You were made to build a fire. The kind of fire that warms two people who both bring wood, who both stay to tend it, who both trust that warmth is not a trick, but a practice. Let the cold teach you what you will no longer accept. Let the silence reveal what you truly need. And then, open the door to a world where your nervous system is not waiting to be chosen. It is already home. If this lands, act. Unfollow the schedule, not the person. Replace the cave's shadow with the sun's clarity. Turn desire into discernment, discernment into standards, and standards into a life where love is not an investigation, but a collaboration. Here is your thought to carry. The opposite of addiction is not abstinence, it is presence. Be present enough with yourself that no one's distance can counterfeit value. Be present enough with another that no game can compete with truth. And if you must chase something, chase the kind of character that never forces anyone to wonder where they stand.